I have spent years accumulating stuff. Stuff that at the time felt like I needed. It felt really important to have, and I needed to buy it or I needed to acquire it. And now what happens? I'm left with all of this stuff. Clutter. Today, I thought that I would talk a little bit about how I ended up with so much clutter and why clutter happens. I'm also going to talk a little bit about how I'm getting a handle on it. I think a lot of us struggle with clutter, and in many cases, it's not our fault, and I'll tell you why. Ever since I was a kid, I remember never decluttering, and I just remember having so much stuff. My room was constantly messy. It was full of items. I mean, you name it. Notes from my friends, little toys and gifts I had gotten, old school books. I don't even remember ever decluttering a space, to be honest with you, until I moved out on my own and I had my own place. And so when you first move into a home, you get an apartment or whatever, you get a room, and it's just this big empty space. And human nature is that we want to fill up our space. I mean, that is the force of nature, right? Nature expands and fills the space that's available. And humans are the same. We just want to fill our spaces with stuff. Stuff that we want, stuff that we need, stuff that we're going to use, maybe stuff we're not going to use, what we just purchased. And then sometimes people go a little bit too far. They've bought all this stuff, they've accumulated and acquired, they haven't gotten rid of, and then their space is packed. And then a lot of times, what do people do? They say to themselves, well, I need more room. This place isn't big enough for me. I need more room. And maybe they go get a bigger room or a bigger apartment or a whole house. And I do think that clutter happens for several reasons. I don't think it's just that people want things and they have no self-control, so they buy it and they acquire it. I don't think that that's the only story. Clutter can be passed down to you. It could be gifted to you. Maybe you're an impulse buyer. We are in a society where the message is to consume. You have hobbies and you need lots of materials. Maybe you have pets. Pets always come with a ton of clutter. Kids, don't even get me started. Kids come with a huge amount of clutter. There's also a pressure to keep up with the Joneses. I know that there's a lot of advertising and marketing that's done, and you kind of are scrolling on your phone and you see something and you're like, oh, if I just had this shirt or this necklace or this kitchen item, my life would be better. And then you purchase it. I have found that clutter sneaks up on you. It is one of those things that happens and then all of a sudden you're cluttered. After we had our first baby, we were in a 2-bedroom condo and she was super colicky. She would sleep for about 45 minutes to an hour and a half only, and then she would wake up to eat. And she did this for the first 8 months of her life. We were walking zombies. I actually don't know how we were members of society because the whole thing was a blur. However, somehow in that time period, the clutter just snuck up on us. We had this new baby. Then we had all these bottles, all these diapers, all this clothing, all of these toys, all of these baby items. And babies, there's just so many things that they convince you that you need to buy and that you must have. Honestly, you don't need that much stuff for a baby. I wish I had known that I don't need all of these gadgets and bouncy seats and boppies and swings and all of the things. So after 8 months and being in this trance, we just woke up one day and our whole apartment looked like a daycare. It was just full of stuff. I think our apartment was 800 square feet. So while it was a 2-bedroom, we're in Washington, D.C., so it's very small. And we just looked around and we were like, when did this happen? Literally, when the hell did this happen? It just snuck up on us. And that's what happens. These big life events and big things, and you're not paying attention, and then all of a sudden you've got a ton of clutter. I think that a lot of people look at themselves through the eyes of their stuff. And I think as a society, we place way too much value on our things, on our possessions. But we are so much more than our possessions, and our possessions are not us. Sometimes we want to accumulate things so that we look nice or that we can show off that we have these things. We're all susceptible to this. The more that we feel good and we feel like we have these things, the more we feel like we belong. I struggle with this as well. On the one hand, I feel really good when I've got a new outfit and I feel good about myself when I feel like I look nice. But then on the other hand, and this is kind of weird, but I also feel good blending in and not standing out for my possessions. I can't really explain it, but I almost feel like safer that I'm not drawing attention to myself. And if you don't draw attention to yourself, no one will bother you. It's just this weird thing between like having possessions and feeling good, but then also not having possessions and feeling like, okay, well now I can blend in and I feel good about that. And then sentimental clutter. This is so hard. And I actually think that almost all clutter could be considered sentimental clutter. Let me know how you feel about this. Forget about like photos and things that like relatives who have passed away have passed down to me. Forget about that. I also feel like sentimental attachment to like kitchen utensils that I've bought, or maybe like certain pieces of clothing in different times in my life when I've worn that clothing, or even like kids' clothing. And I remember when my baby wore this outfit. And it's just, when everything is sentimental, and when you think everything is sentimental, then what's truly special, right? What really has that value if everything has it? I might do an entire video on the impact of clutter because we all know how strong the impact could be. Let me know if you'd be interested in a video like that, but I just want to give you a couple stats and a couple pieces of information because I do think that these things are really eye-opening. But number one, obviously it causes stress and anxiety when you have clutter. And maybe you don't even realize that you have this stress and anxiety and that it's related to your clutter. It also prevents sleeping. You cannot sleep as well in a place that's cluttered. I did a whole video on bedroom decluttering because I feel so strongly about this. Not having a cluttered space when you're sleeping, you will get a better sleep. And that really just trickles down into your whole space and your whole home, not just your bedroom. It also, clutter impacts your ability to focus. Humans are not meant to take care of hundreds of thousands of things in their home. I just don't think humans' brains are wired in the way to keep track of so much stuff. And so it really impacts your ability to focus and do a good job in your daily life. I also read this interesting stat, and it's kind of compelling to get started early, but basically the research has shown that if you're over the age of 50, then making the decision on what to do with your clutter is something that people over 50 put off much more so than younger people. And the other thing is, those exact same people feel that this clutter is making them dissatisfied with life. Okay, now on to what I am doing and how I am getting rid of my clutter. You've probably seen a couple of my videos on Swedish death cleaning. I am applying Swedish death cleaning to the very cluttered areas of my home that you don't see on a daily basis. So I'm not going to be Swedish death cleaning like my kitchen or anything like that. Swedish death cleaning is really about the cluttered spaces that you have in your home. Like if you were to die tomorrow and someone had to come in your house and clean it out, where are those spaces and what are they going to do with your stuff? So think like closets, maybe under your bed, attics, basements. So I've been applying this lens to my attic and to my basement. I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of videos on this. I've already done several, and I will continue to share what I learn and my tips and tricks and things like that, because I have had this cluttered life in the past. I have been accumulating stuff, and now that I'm in my 40s, my plan is to stop accumulating stuff because I'm not going to be decluttering as like a lifelong thing. Yes, maybe clothing. I will probably be decluttering clothing because, you do need to buy new clothes. Your clothes get worn out, styles change, whatever. So I will be decluttering clothing, shoes, and things like that. But I don't plan to keep on decluttering things like photos, kitchen utensils, decor. Like, I'm just not bringing that stuff into my home anymore. And if I do bring it into the home on like the off chance, it will be thrifted items, and then I will be donating them when I'm done with them. Kind of see it as like I'm paying to borrow or rent this item potentially. I know that it's a marathon and not a sprint when you're thinking of decluttering, but I don't want this to have to become like my lifestyle where it's like, okay, every week I'm going to have to declutter a whole big box. The way to stop doing that is you have to cut the clutter off at the source. So that's my other plan. So I can keep getting rid of this clutter, cut the clutter off at the source, and hopefully live a more relaxing, happier, fresher life. So let's look on the bright side. Every day is a new day and a new opportunity to do what we want to do and to start what we want to start. So just remember that. And if you're already thinking about decluttering, like that is step one. So you are through step one. Come along with me if you're interested in seeing more content like this. I'm going to be sharing my decluttering journey. I also do videos on home hacks, just generally trying to make your home a happy place that you want to be in and that you love. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.